to a brand new season of Inside the Piranha Club. We'll be taking a look ahead of the 2026 Formula One season. I'm Rebecca Clancy.
I'm Ben Hunt, and
I'm Mark Mann-Bryans.
Hello,
we
Mark.
have a new person joining us this year. Hi, MMB, as we call you.
Hi there, guys. How you doing? I feel very much like James May when he joined Top Gear. I feel like the team is now complete.
Not that we weren't good before, but thanks.
Of course. No, absolutely not.
We need
Captain
you.
Slow.
Yeah, there you go.
We have far more nicknames for MMB. You'll discover them all through the course of the season, I have no doubt.
Yes, and we should also say we need to work on all the ailments and all the, he's literally 1 in 7 billion, isn't he?
He is. Ben, one of Ben's favourite thing about MMB is all his ailments, and I have absolutely no doubt that we will get to all of them. I should also asterisk this by saying they're not really ailments; they're just things that people deal with daily. But MMB seems to have them all. Much to Ben's amusement. Right?
Are we picking on you? Are we picking on you from day one?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. This is bullying in the workplace.
Inside the Piranha Club HR.
Yeah, we are not organised, mate. Seriously. You have to find your own HR department. Right, so shall we crack on? Because we are, as I say, new season. We're back. It's the three of us now. And we are staring down the barrel of the biggest regulation change in the history of F1. They have decided to change the regs for the chassis, for the engine, and for the tyres. And we have 100% sustainable fuel. So for all of our regular listeners who have been with us for a while, you'll know that this is not our area of expertise. Tech is not really our thing. The Piranha Club is more about the gossip and the stories and the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, which we'll obviously get into. But given the scale of what is happening this season, we have decided, somewhat foolishly you might think, to set ourselves the challenge of trying to explain to you each of the regulation changes. So MMB is going to take the tyres, Ben is going to take the engines, and I'm going to take the aeros. What?
Oh, dearie me, I've got the tough one.
We got the tough. Well, I mean, can't say I didn't give you a heads up. By the way, we're not doing this.
You were the last to get on the WhatsApp messages. That was the issue.
You were too slow, Ben. That's why you get engines. So we're giving ourselves 30 seconds to try, dear listener, and explain what each of them mean. So MMB is going to go first. So strap yourselves in.
No do we need to set? Should we need to set a clock?
No, I think we're just going to be kind to each other. And because let's face it, 30 seconds of tyre talks is more than anybody needs.
Well, that's
right,
true.
So MMB, are you ready?
Before we start, I'd just like to point out, I was watching testing this morning, and bearing in mind, this is the 6th day of basically wall-to-wall coverage of testing on Sky. And even then, Anthony Davidson was still getting questions from viewers asking him to explain the rules. And he did it in about an hour, and we've given ourselves 30 seconds. He's a racing driver and we're not. So listeners, just bear with us, but we think this will be, 90 seconds, and then you never have to think about it again.
You romantic.
Yeah.
We're not, lads, we're like 3 minutes in. Let's not go there already. All right, come on. MMB, right, here we go. 30 seconds, starting now.
So tiresome tyre chat. I think it's quite straightforward actually with the tyres. Narrower this year, front and rear. But the wheels will still be 18 inches in size. The front tyres are 25 millimetres narrower than previously, with the rears 30 millimetres narrower. And the idea of that is adding to the lighter cars, helping them be more agile. We know the cars are smaller and everything. This is part of that. Design has changed slightly as well. You might have noticed if you watched any testing that the sidewall graphics are there now. The aim has been to improve the compounds across the board, so teams might use all three over a race weekend, get rid of the idea of one-stop strategies. Haven't got any time left.
No, you went over. You somehow made it to 40 seconds talking about tyres, which is longer than I promised we will talk about tyres going forward. All right, Ben.
Look, that was the most boring 40 seconds of my life, I'm afraid.
And you sport Wimbledon.
I'm gonna usurp it with engine chat.
I mean, come on, listen. You've got quite a tricky one here, Ben, because a lot of it is about the engines. So, Are you ready? Right, 3, 2, 1, go.
In their infinite wisdom, Formula One have decided to change the engine rules for this year for the first time in 12 years. The theory is that they want to have more wheel-to-wheel racing. The main component that I am focusing on is the power unit, which is comprised of the internal combustion engine, the turbocharger, the energy store, otherwise known as a battery, control electronics, and the
5 seconds.
MGUK, which is the kinetic device that regenerates from braking. I've got to go on. Okay, so the ICU is 1.6 litre turbocharged V6, which is the same as what we had last year, essentially. But we don't have the MGUH, which was the heat-generated electrical component.
Are we going to allow this?
We've now got a new MGUK, which is 3 times more powerful. And so, as a result, it's easier to recover. Well, it's not easier, but you recover energy. You've thrown me off. You recover the energy by braking, coasting, but you also do it well on throttle as well.
And you're still awake.
Drivers can regenerate this battery, which is responsible for 50% of the power. The IC internal IC. I was going to say ITU. ICE. No, it is ICU.
Don't talk about ICE.
God.
I feel like we should have put a warning on this that you need a bucket of caffeine to get through this section.
Hang on.
I didn't realise we were having Adrian Newey on as our first guest, Beck.
I know, who knew?
Listen, on my notes, I've got super clipping.
To be fair, Ben's actually done some research.
Yeah.
I have, yeah. Look, long story short, the battery's kind of more important.
There's nothing short about this.
The recovery mechanism is more powerful, and consequently drivers are going to have to change their driving style to recharge the battery because it's such a significant part of the engine makeup. It means that they're going to be racing differently. They're talking about lifting and coasting to regenerate the battery power, which will allow you to use it by pressing the boost button. Look, it's very boring.
I think you've still got 5 seconds.
And yet we are about 3 minutes into this.
Damn it. I couldn't do 30 seconds.
We've set such a low bar for you here, Beck.
Yeah.
I know. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you know me and my love of all things technology, so this probably will be 30 seconds. Right, you ready? Okay, so in terms of the aero, we have ended the ground effect era. The point of that is because with the ground effect cars, they created this outwash, which creates turbulence, which meant the car behind couldn't get very close. So the plan is to get rid of the ground effect era, and then we'll have closer racing. The front wing has been simplified. It's got fewer elements. They've got rid of that eyebrow that used to go over the winglets of the eyebrows that went over the front wheel. And there are barge boards behind the front wheels which help with the airflow. There's no more DRS. The front and rear wings are both active. Obviously, the rear wing always has been, but both can now move, and they can move whenever the driver decides. You don't have to be within 1 second of the car. The size of the cars have been reduced. They're 200 millimeters shorter. The floor is 100 millimeters narrower, and the cars have reduced their minimum weight from 800 kilos to 768 kilos, and I'm done.
Ooh.
Not bad.
You rehearsed that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I just wrote better notes.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
fair.
you picked the easy subject.
I mean, to be fair, I delegated the subject, so, you know,
Yeah.
read into that what you will.
Okay, so let's talk about the engine again, because
dear God.
that's the thing that's causing a lot of rowing at the moment.
Yes.
Toto Wolff really agitated yesterday.
Well, let's just start because this is our first episode back. So just to give you the listeners an understanding of where we are in this season, we are recording on the Friday of the second test in Bahrain. So they have had 6 full days of running, which came after that week that they had the shakedown, as they called it, which was behind closed doors in Barcelona. And I think it's fair to say the controversy and, more importantly, and this, let's be honest, is what you're here for, the conspiracies have started in bloom.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it reminded me of a couple of years ago when Mercedes introduced this, oh my God, this is boring again, the dual axis steering system. Do you remember this? It was like...
Should we just have replaced MMB with Ben? Ben, we just got rid of Ben. We don't need 3 of us. We'll just get rid of Ben and bring MMB in.
Mercedes come up with a system which allowed them to change the pitch of their front wheels, which was to preserve tyre life.
It was clever.
It was a really clever design, and it had been designed in accordance with the FIA. They all knew about it, and then they rocked up at testing. Everyone saw it and was like, wow, what a good idea. Shame we never thought about that. And then the FIA decided to ban it at the end of that year. So Mercedes could only use it.
Not just because of the FIA. They were very heavily... what's the word I'm looking for? Lobbied by other teams who hadn't come up with the idea.
Yeah, and we are in a very similar situation here now with suspicion about the Mercedes power unit. There was always this
Go on,
suspicion that
Ben, explain what the issue is. Compression ratios.
compression ratio. So a Formula One engine is limited to a 16.1 compression ratio. So basically, that limits how much fuel and air can go into the combustion chamber at any given period, and it's 16:1, which is measured at an ambient temperature. You can't. It's difficult to measure something at a hot temperature because how do you measure a hot engine which is all moving and everything? Anyway, that's not my problem. But what is the problem is the suspicion that Mercedes have created a way with technology and the equipment and the materials they've used for thermal expansion, which means this chamber increases in size the hotter it gets. So there's a theory that it could go to 1 in 18. And of course, what that means is the bigger the chamber, the more fuel and air that goes in, the bigger explosion, the more power. And so that is why teams are calling foul, in the sense that once the engine gets hot, it passes all the checks at cold. Once it gets hot, it expands. The engine is then able to deliver more horsepower when it's hot, and obviously give them a better top speed. So that's why the teams are upset. They've now got to vote on whether it's acceptable to change the rules with regards to the measuring halfway through the year. So the FIA have got to come up with some way of measuring a moving engine, which I'm sure they will do.
Here's what I find interesting about this. And so you have your comparison. My comparison is the double diffuser Brawn 2009. Because what I find interesting is that this is all perfectly legal, by the way. Mercedes, when the teams develop their cars, they are constantly being checked to make sure that they match the regulations. And everything Mercedes are doing at the moment matches what they're allowed to do. It's fully within the regs. But when the double diffuser came in, it just blew everyone's mind. Ross Brawn, the genius that he is, created this car, won 6 of the first 7 races. I can't remember what it was. And obviously Jenson Button went on to win the championship despite his best efforts in the second half, where he wasn't really performing. Anyway, what I find interesting about this is that FIA have already come out and said, we might have to change the regs halfway through the season. But as per Brawn, which didn't really perform in the second half of the season, they were so dominant in the first half of the season. So Mercedes could absolutely storm away. Yeah. George Russell, who drives for them, is already the bookies' favourite to win the championship this year. So Mercedes have got 12 races, basically. Well, I can't remember how many, but there's 24 races this season, let's say half. 12 races with this so deemed advantage. And Toto Wolff, being Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, has called bullshit on his rivals, who he thinks are stirring.
Yeah, I mean, they probably are, but that's their job. And it's also his job when things don't go right, for his team. That is the very nature of Formula One. That is the Piranha Club. I thought it was great seeing him getting all uppity. I found it a little bit strange, the Epstein reference in the press conference. That seemed to be very ill-judged.
You need to explain that.
Well, he said, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe my name will appear in the Epstein files. It's just
Jeffrey Epstein, obviously, that we're talking about. I think if you don't know who he is, I'm not sure where you've been the last couple of years.
You must be yeah, but I mean, it's he's a man under pressure. Let's be honest about it. I wrote this the other day. It was all very well when Toto Wolff came in for the regulation change in 2014 because all the hard work had been done and he reaped the benefits. The team had all been assembled. Lewis Hamilton arrived. Niki Lauda was the driving force behind it. And Wolff obviously lapped up the plaudits. But,
And Ross Brawn, obviously they took over, and previously mentioned.
Brawn, I mean, look, it was already made for him. And then let's look back. The other change in regulations, 22, the ground effect car that you mentioned before.
2017,
Mercedes.
we had another reg change as well.
No side pods we had, didn't we?
That's right. And
side pod sparkle.
Well, since then, it's just been dud after dud after dud after dud off the production line. And to be fair, the drivers have done their best with it. But, on his watch, under his tenure, if you like, the designs have been duff. The leadership has been all over the place. They've lost Hamilton, that's gone to a rival because he's desperate to win a world title and doesn't trust Mercedes to deliver him a car to do it. And then to add on top of this, you've only gone and seen a customer in McLaren win the last 2 construction constructors titles using Mercedes engine. I think if you was the board of Mercedes, you'd be going, what's going on, Toto? Like, you're getting beaten by your customer. Like, the pressure's on. He's got to start delivering.
Well, aero has always been Mercedes' weakness, hasn't it? So do you remember back in 2014, they came out, obviously all guns blazing, the dominant car, but it was the engine that was dominant. And it wasn't actually until the reg changes in 2017 that they sorted out their aero, by which point the other teams had started working out their cars. Ferrari came obviously into the fold then, Sebastian Vettel moved over, and Vettel was challenging Hamilton for the title. Granted, never really seriously, but, 2018 at least, it was a good challenge. So aero does seem to be an issue for Mercedes, and I think this is kind of being proven at the moment with what we're seeing, because you look at testing and we've managed to go, 15 minutes. I'm going to say the word that we all hate the most, sandbagging. What? We all know it's happening. You thought I was going to say tyres again, didn't you?
No. There's a lot of there's plenty of worse words.
We don't need to talk about porpoising anymore. Ground effect era is over. Although God knows what will come up next, but we know sandbagging happens in testing. They're all pointing fingers at each other. Russell's saying Red Bull pace is ridiculous. They're way ahead. Everyone's pointing the finger at each other. But it does look like those four teams, as in Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari, are quite considerably ahead. And we still don't really know who's turned up their engines, what fuels they're running on, what programs they're running. We don't actually know anything at the moment. So it's just, and forgive me as the only woman on this pod, but it feels a little bit like a lot of willy waggling.
Yeah, I think
wow.
so. But I do think we should, do you praise Mercedes in a way because they found a loophole?
Yes.
You have to, don't you?
Absolutely.
The whole thing about these regulations, the big thing has always been Adrian Newey knows how to find, we don't know yet because that Aston Martin's been a bit of a dog so far, hasn't it? But
it's only 4 seconds slower than everyone else.
Exactly. But I think you're right. It very much is those top four. I don't think we know the order yet heading to Australia. And then I think there's a midfield that, Haas look good. The RB looks good. Williams is too heavy, so there's an issue there. So there's all these things throughout the field at the moment. But if you see one of your rivals that could take championships and things off you and race wins and things like that, you're going to call foul, aren't you? It's kind of sad in a way that Christian Horner still isn't around. I think he'd have had some great quotes and everything around Wolf and what they're doing there. So those
he was always good for throwing a grenade, wasn't he?
Exactly that. But yeah,
But he's currently enjoying a ski trip with Bernie Ecclestone.
Can you enjoy that? I suppose. Yeah, I think they have to call foul because they missed out on doing it themselves. It's more for them in a way, isn't it?
Well, it's not just Mercedes, though, who have had some interesting bits on their car. The Ferrari rotating rear wing. I mean, kudos to IBM, who have got more coverage than I imagine they could ever have wanted. But the Ferrari rear wing rotates fully, which is interesting. As I said, DRS is gone. You can open the flap whenever you want as a driver. Obviously, you want it closed during the corners for more downforce and open during on the straights to reduce drag. So there are some definite loopholes being exposed here.
But that was always going to.
Did you see Lewis Hamilton's start, by the way?
Yes.
Because they're doing practice starts. They're playing, FIA are playing around with the start procedure. And there's an amazing, I think it's from day 2 of the second test, of them all doing a practice start. Hamilton, I think, starts, I say that in quote marks, starts 4th or 5th. And by the end of the first corner, he's leading. And it's brilliant.
It's very
Although he might have been the only one actually pushing it, but it was great. Yeah, very Mario Kart.
Given his qualifying performances last year, it might be really helpful if that's how they're going to start races this year.
Yes, it was pretty miserable, wasn't it, towards the end of last year?
I did enjoy, as a listener, Ben, I have to say I did enjoy your belief that he was going to win a race even right to the very end. But maybe we'll see it this year. I do think, just quickly, Leclerc seems to have got to grips with that car really quickly. Like, he seems to be getting it in the slot. And I know, again, we talk about sandbagging, but I've been impressed with Leclerc in testing.
Right, look, we're going to do a full team by team next week. We're going to go through all 11 teams. Obviously, Cadillac joining us. Bottas and Perez have returned. We'll go through all 22 drivers. For now, let's just go back to these cars. I'm going to give you some quotes because there's a mixed reaction to the cars. Some people have enjoyed them, some not so much. So those for the new cars have included Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion at Ferrari now. He says they're more fun to drive. He says we have less downforce, as obviously mentioned, but you still have to discover the grip. He's really enjoying it. He says they're different, and he's still finding it quite fun. We have Max Verstappen, who absolutely did not hold back. He has completely criticised the energy management, which Ben was talking about, which means you basically have to lift during certain corners to recharge your battery. He called it Formula E on steroids, and he says it's just not Formula One anymore. He says it's all about management, and he doesn't like it. Fernando Alonso has equally been quite scathing about it. He said the driver skill is not as important as it was before. George Russell, I sort of feel a bit like George Russell is saying this as director of the GPDA, the Grand Prix Drivers Association. He was saying that, in fact, he gave a really odd example. He was like, imagine going around a roundabout in third gear, and now you have to go around in first gear because you need more revs, because you need to recharge your battery. And I was thinking, for a start, one, how fast are you going around a roundabout to be going in third gear? Two, doesn't everyone just drive an automatic now anyway?
Maybe that's the next thing.
Yeah, well, and then we have Lando Norris, who is clearly having more fun than anybody else, because during the first week of testing, he came out and said, they're a lot of fun to drive. If you don't like it, you can always go and drive somewhere else. He's then come out, which was a direct reference, not even thinly veiled, at Verstappen being so critical about Formula E, or accusing F1 of being Formula E. He's now come out this week and said, I just didn't want to be negative. Those comments were just wanted to see how the other drivers reacted. So Lando Norris is already playing wind-up merchant with the number one on his car.
Yeah, he's coming into the season, isn't he, with that number one on the car. I thought there was a really interesting interview he did where he was saying, it was when we went to McLaren MTC the other day, and he said, I've achieved everything now I've ever wanted to do. I've been working for 20 years to try and become a Formula One world champion, and I'm always going to walk around with a smile on my face. If you catch me without a smile on my face, you have my permission to punch me to remind me that I'm a Formula One world champion. It's something that no one can ever take away from him. So I thought that's a really interesting mindset for someone that's always been a little bit glass half empty. I just think that is a shift. I didn't mean that. A shift in mentality, which is obviously beneficial for him. He's feeling in a good space, and he feels like he can mix it up. And yeah, he now knows how to put pressure on, his nearest rivals, and he will be doing that in press conferences and chirping here and there. And the newly single Lando Norris, according to reports, of course. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it's going to be a really interesting year for him. We could see a totally different Lando Norris in 2026 than what we've seen before. Someone that's much more confident, much more outgoing, and yeah, bring it on.
Do you think that some of the drivers' reactions to the rules are very much tied to their cars? Like I was in Saudi for the Aston launch, and Fernando Alonso clearly knew that Aston was going to be struggling, and he was basically saying, "Look, we might not like the new regs. They're not for drivers. You can't basically go out if you're a natural driver who just likes to drive fast. These aren't for you. You've got to do all these things. You've got to think about all these things." I do think it is skewed a little bit by that. Other than Max, who obviously is just great. But I was on a call with Stefano Domenicali, and he was adamant this year is going to be great. I mean, that's his job, isn't it, to promote this? But he basically said that he doesn't really see any of the anxiety. He thinks the racing's going to be good. The racing could be good, couldn't it? We don't know yet, but it doesn't. Formula One means it should be the pinnacle. It's not just about being good. It's about being the best engineering and technically, as well as just that on track, isn't it?
So let me ask you this question, because I think this is what I find really interesting, and this is what I think will be a running theme through the year. We have tried in 90 seconds and failed cataclysmically to explain these new regs. It is unbelievably complicated, and Lewis Hamilton actually came out and said it's way too complicated. I don't understand how fans are going to understand this. We as the drivers barely understand it. All this energy management, when you are watching Formula One, as you say, MMB, it's the pinnacle of motor racing, and we are now being told that they are going to be lifting and coasting, and qualifying laps, which is where they're always flat out, obviously, they're going to be doing qualifying laps where they're not on the limit. For me, that is not okay in Formula One.
I agree. And I think that, we've got 5 variables in Formula One, and 4 of them have changed in the engine, the tyres, the aero, the fuel, whatever. The driver's the only thing that hasn't. I think that Formula One has worked so hard to cultivate a fan base, and it's all very good, saying that, record number of fans, Americans are all tuning in, etc., etc. That's great. That's really healthy. But then to change 4 of the elements of 5 and come into the new season and come in without actually having any humility to acknowledge the fact that fans may not understand. It's going to be a totally different product to what they watched last year. It's going to take, yes, some refinement and some explanations, but it's very naive to think that people aren't going to react to it. And I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement of the fact that so much has changed in such a short period of time that you do risk alienating the fans that you tried so hard to create. It's like, I keep saying, it's like putting an extra goal on a football pitch to create more goals because we want more goals. That's the easy way. More goals on the pitch means teams are going to be scoring more. It's going to be great. Everyone's going to love it. Well,
you have to spend half the time walking and not running.
Yes.
Maybe that isn't
also true.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
We have Cadillac coming in this year and we have Audi coming in this year. We know that both of those car companies, which is what they are, let's be honest, were at the table when these new regs were being discussed. Have the car companies, who take all of this technology, by the way, and they feed it into their road cars and they very much use it as a shop window to sell their road cars, have the car companies had too much say in these new engines? Because it's the engines which are the problem, which are causing all the debate and the issues. It's the engines which need the management. It's the battery which makes up 50-50 power now. It's the sustainable fuels, which obviously the likes of Shell and Petronas, they want. And again, that feeds back into your road cars. Have they just had too much say at the expense of racing?
I don't know if it's about having say. I think they were, maybe F1's bent over backwards a little bit too much to get them in. I mean, you mentioned Cadillac and Audi, but you should also mention Honda and Ford are back in F1 this year. Ford are working with Red Bull powertrains. Honda, obviously, with Aston. There's no chance those 4 huge manufacturers would have come if these rules hadn't changed, if the electrification hadn't changed, the fuels as well hadn't changed. So I get that F1 felt the need to get these guys in, but have they, like you said, have they done it at the detriment to the performance, the spectacle? Maybe not the spectacle. It is the I think they're very different things. The spectacle, I think, will still be good. The performance will be a drop on the last few years. And just to go back a little bit here, I always think Martin Brundle's been really good on Sky when you're watching a race, and we've watched enough, but he'll always go, oh, by the way, if you're a new viewer, a car has to stop once during a race and change and have 2 sets of tyres. That's something easy to explain, job done. Imagine in Australia if he go, oh, by the way, if you're a new listener, new viewer, we'll have done half the race by the time we go over what we've just discussed on this podcast. It's closing the door a lot, I think, to new fans. It's almost like saying we've got a big pool of fans now. We're happy with that pool of fans. We don't need any more, or it's going to be a lot more difficult to bring those people on board.
Yeah, and just to put it into context, you mentioned about growing in the US. ESPN, owned by Disney, obviously, who no longer have the rights, it's moved to Apple in the US. Disney's average viewership was 1.4 million a race. To put that into context, Bad Bunny at the halftime show was seen by more than 150 million people. So there is an enormous amount of growth to go. It doesn't feel like making it even more complicated than it already is the right way for Formula One to go, is it?
I always think that sport should be fan first. And, I know Formula One is different because it's business, politics, entertainment, sport, whatever it is. But at the core of everything for me, it should be the fan and the fan experience. And I just think that they've been forgotten about in these new wave of regulations. I don't see how the technology is road relevant. I mean, manufacturers are all producing electric cars or hybrid cars. I think that they know that sphere enough without actually utilising whatever they're going to find.
Ferrari can't sell their electric vehicles, can they?
But that's because people don't want an electric Ferrari. That's just how life is at the moment. And I don't think that investing all that money in a hybrid power unit in Formula One is going to convince people that they want an electric Ferrari road car.
I do get that, Ben, but there's clearly, and Rebecca mentioned, there is clearly a hook here to have got Ford, Honda, Cadillac, to GM, to get all them in. That it must be because of those rule changes. So I agree with you, actually. I don't see how much crossover there is, but to them as companies, they clearly see this is more relevant to their businesses.
Well, is it because it's a leveler of the playing field? If you promise, if they come in and you say, look, we're going to change the rules so it's everyone's starting again from scratch. That's going to be more beneficial than saying, no, we're going to have the exactly the same engines where Mercedes have got 12, 13, 14 years of experience in this department, and you've got to come in and invest all your money into the factory and try and catch up. That's not very appealing for me as Ford to come into. Whereas if you turn around and say, look, okay, you're coming in, we're going to redesign the engines, you can all start at the same time, and this is what it's going to look like, you're going to be much more on board, aren't you? You're going to go, okay, fine, well, everyone's equal at this point.
Well, GM and Cadillac, obviously, as well, using those Ferrari engines for the start, they're taking their time to create their own power unit, which might, even though they're going to be probably the slowest team, along with Aston Martin, is probably the way to go at the moment, isn't it? Not coming in with a brand new team, a brand new car, and you've got a brand new power unit. So I do think that was quite a smart move to use Ferrari's engine.
I think we've got to talk about Aston Martin. We've got to talk about Aston Martin. Did Honda ever leave? Yes, they did, because when they announced that they were leaving, a lot of those engineers were poached by Red Bull powertrain stroke Ford, and of course it's left a gulf in talent, and they've needed to recruit at Honda and to bring people in to try and keep that project moving forward. And I think that they're paying the price now for that period of time where they were leaving Formula One and the exodus of staff that they had. Don't forget, Red Bull took a lot of that technology that they had in Milton Keynes as well. So yeah, I think that they have been hamstrung by that decision. I also think that that video that I'm sure you guys have seen, but Adrian Newey looking very exasperated in the Bahrain paddock, rubbing his head and really looking uncomfortable with what he's faced to deal with. That isn't what Newey does. Newey gets on and designs things and pushes the envelope, and he's quite at home drawing these concepts. He's not really one of these people who deals very well with the pressure of being told what's going wrong, we must have X, Y, and Z. He's thrived in environments where there's been big, strong bosses like Ron Dennis, Frank Williams, even Christian Horner, who have deflected all the attention and allowed him the freedom and the capacity just to crack on with his work. Whereas now he is the fulcrum of everything, and all the attention is on him. And I can only imagine the stress that he's under at the moment, and all the pressure. And everyone was expecting great things, and the moment that he came in, everyone was awestruck. But it's just not worked. And I think that, all that money, all that investment that Lawrence Stroll has put in and backing Adrian Newey to be the person to take them to the front, and it's just not looking like it's working at the moment.
Well, it doesn't help that Adrian Newey is now the team principal and has no one to just let him get on with the drawing. But we are going to do the team by team, so we are going to get into that a bit more. But yes, I fully agree with you. And also, if you've seen any of the images of Lawrence Stroll in the paddock, yeah, I'm glad he's not my boss, let's put it like that. I'd say there have been some hairdryers blown in people's faces, as it were, for the football analogy. Okay, I think that covers off testing, which is to say, don't read in too much into testing. We don't really know what the teams are doing, what they're running, programs, engines, fuel loads. Don't worry about it.
Testing used to be one of my least favourite times of year, because you just go and sit at the track and not really know anything. You'd be totally in the dark. I remember, back in Jerez when we used to do the testing there, it was, and probably Barcelona as well, I think. I remember the images that we used to watch in the press room were CCTV images, and I imagine that there was someone clicking a button, just going from camera 1, 2, 3, really low quality, and of course you just had the timing, and it was just incredibly bleak, but you were in the dark. You didn't know what any setup was. It was just a guessing game. So we can't read too much into testing, can we?
No.
Well, go even further back, and 99 will always be my favourite year. But we went into Australia that year, and the big talk then was, all Ferrari's testing was done privately, all McLaren's testing was done privately. Whose doorbell? That's not even my door.
That's my doorbell. Yeah, someone's at the door. Yeah. I wonder what it is.
A chirpy doorbell.
Lawrence Stroll's on your.
I'm a very chirpy person.
Okay, that's the only regulation change that hasn't happened.
Teams used to be allowed so much private testing that, no, it would be completely in the dark until you arrived at a Grand Prix. And we had those years back then. The first race of the year would, 5 cars would finish a race because of that development and everything. Well, I'm not saying that would happen this year, but we could see something like that. But man, testing. You go to testing now because you get to speak to people in the paddock, and there's media sessions, and you get the Max Verstappen talking about Formula E on steroids, not to sit there and watch. I put it on this morning when I got out of bed. I can't imagine sitting in front of my TV for 6 hours a day watching Bahrain testing.
8 hours. 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon. Oh my! Testing is one of the most painful experiences you could possibly ever have. So it's not ideal. But okay, we're going to wrap it up. I think we've basically covered it off, haven't we? So we will be back, as I said, next week with a team by team, driver by driver. It's going to take a while. We have a new team on the grid. There will be 11 with the addition of Cadillac. But until then, it is great to be back for this new season. We are very excited to have MMB on board. And we look forward to what will be, no doubt, a year full of gossip, conspiracies, grenade throwing, and hopefully some good racing. So until next week, thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.